Hey y'all, welcome to the T-Work podcast, hosted by Grant Banko and me, Adam Moreau. From entrepreneurs and athletes to the rat racers of corporate America and those who refuse to be put in a box, we want to share their stories and understand how they ended up where they are. Success and development come in many shapes and sizes. We want to hear about it all. So grab a drink and pull up a seat. Let's spill some tea and get to
Welcome to another episode of the T-Work podcast. Today we have guest Quinnten Thompson, owner and operator of Ride Your Way Tampa Bay. Quinnten, we know from college through a friend of friend. Both Adam and I were at Eckerd, and one of our teammates was good friends with Quinnten in high school, and Quinnten would come up and visit. He didn't actually go to Eckerd College with us, but he definitely visited multiple times. He actually went to Oklahoma State University and worked in the car business out in Oklahoma when he graduated. And then he wanted to live with me and our friend Taylor. So he moved over to St. Pete, and we were roommates for about 9 months. And then he got tired of me. So he moved over to Orlando, and I moved to Fort Lauderdale, and Taylor moved to Atlanta. And we kind of all left the St. Pete area. Um, Quinnten continued to work in the car business. And then he started his own business where he was fixing up cars, buying different power motorsports and that's how Ride Your Way started. And now he's based in Tampa Bay. It's through Polaris, and he rents out slingshots. And then he's also still on the car auction side. So Quinnten, thank you for joining us today. He's actually currently my roommate again. So we're both back in St. Pete. So if you hear some echo, we're on the other side of the wall. But Quinnten, anything you'd add about your background there?
Well, first thing, you're my roommate. You moved in with me. And then I believe in the first podcast for you guys, you mentioned that you're a Floridian. Well, I was born and raised in Florida. The birth certificate says Florida, so I'll take that title for this pod. So you can't have that title for this. But no, I mean, I think you covered it pretty well. I mean, like I said, I knew Taylor in high school, and how I met you guys, and basically became an honorary Eckerd Triton there, just zooming around on yellow bikes while you guys are at baseball practice and stuff, and trying to cause as much chaos as possible when I came to town. So I think one of those stories where it's like you always hear like high school friends and college friends don't ever mix, and then I guess we could kind of consider this to be one of the rare occasions where it does, and we all get along for the most part. And yeah, unfortunately, signed up to have you live with me again. So here we go.
I mean, you got your new job 1 week moving in, so I guess I'm your good luck charm.
Maybe. I also moved away from you too pretty quick. So
That could be coming again. That could be coming again. I
you never
mean,
know.
to get more into the serious side though, Quinn, I mean, I didn't actually know your major and minor, so like give some background there and like how you actually got into the car business and that side of things.
Okay. Yeah. So I mean, I'll keep the long story short, but my grandfather was a Chrysler dealer for 43 years in a small town in Pennsylvania. With that, my dad actually worked for the dealership as well. He was selling cars, doing all kinds of things within the dealership. He sold my mom a car, so that's how they met. So I'm pretty well, or if it wasn't for the car business, I wouldn't be around. So I'm pretty indebted to it for sure. Um, and then through that time, my dad transitioned from different things and went into like the power sports business as well. So we owned a Yamaha dealership in a different town in Pennsylvania. So I kind of grew up I got my first dirt bike when I was like 4 years old. My dad put training wheels on it and said, go figure it out. So we had like a motocross track behind the dealership. So I'd just throw the helmet on, some gear, and go rip around. And if I broke something, just drop it into service. They'd fix it, and I go back to it. So I could do no wrong. I mean, there's times where like I knocked over like a brand new row of dirt bikes, just probably 10 or 12 bikes, just knocked them all over because I was just like zipping through the showroom doing stuff. So, but yes, I mean, I've been in like in the automotive or the power sports industry pretty much since birth. I mean, I would ride. My dad would put me on a motorcycle, and I'd ride home, and like I'd have my head on the gas tank with my helmet on, and I'd fall asleep, like and just scratch up gas tanks on motorcycles. So I'd just instantly fall asleep on bikes. So I don't know if that's probably the most legal thing in the world, or if that's probably frowned upon in today's day and age. But it was the early '90s, so who cares? So I mean, and I think I have a really good relationship with my dad. So I think one of those things where I kind of wanted to be him and follow his footsteps as much as I could. So I just kind of always followed him around and tried to go on sales visits and things in the summer when I could, and just always really enjoyed the car business and the power sports business. And then, so when I graduated went to college, went to Oklahoma State and studied marketing and sports management. Started out as a pre-med major, and then quickly figured out, I was like, yeah, you know what? No thanks. So yeah, changed that like end of sophomore year. So I'm sure wasn't the best move in most cases, but hey, we figured it out. Got an extra football season out of it. Took 4.5 years, but hey, who cares, right? I got one more year. But yeah, so I mean, when it came time to go to the real world, at the time there was a new startup that came out called Trade Rev, and it was basically an online auto auction. So I started in Oklahoma, out in Tulsa, and I was basically going to different dealerships, and I was doing vehicle inspections. So we go out, take pictures of the car, do minor diagnostic work on it, look for frame damage, things like that. So I'd go to the store, I'd image them up, and then we put them online and sell them. So I did that for a little while in Tulsa, and then there was an opportunity. One of the managers in Florida came out to Oklahoma, was helping us, have a better game plan, how to strategize better. And we had a pretty good relationship that we built pretty quickly. And he had an opening in St. Pete. So being an original Floridian, I wanted to get back to Florida as quickly as I could. So an opportunity came to St. Pete. And so that's where, I rallied with you and Taylor. So moved back in with you guys, and then, was doing the same inspections and that sort of thing in the St. Pete, Sarasota, Bradenton area. So that was where I spent most of my days. And then from there, opportunities just I enjoyed the inspections. I learned a lot with it. But I knew there was more for me. I wanted to do a little more with the customer facing, not be behind the scenes as much as I was. So I took a chance and I interviewed for a outside sales rep position in Orlando. So I went from what I was doing before, which was the digital auction and that sort of thing. I went to the physical brand. So kind of like what you would see on TV if you watch like Mecum Auto Auctions or things like that, where you have a car that goes through the lane, you have the auctioneer, you have all the bells and whistles and all that stuff going on. That's what we were doing. I mean, it wasn't as like glamorous as what you see on TV. But so it was my job basically to go to the different car dealerships, and if they had trade-in inventory, old age inventory, cars that they didn't want anymore or needed to get off of, it'd be my job to go to those dealerships and get those cars to our facility and then run through our lanes and sell them. So I did that for a while. And then, there was a couple of different buyouts and things like that within our company. So we kind of morphed back into a digital and a physical auction platform. So I had to sell that platform. And then just kind of, the company strategized or changed strategy a couple different times. So we were always selling something different. But basically I was just on the road 4 or 5 days a week, driving around basically from Orlando all the way down to South Florida and everywhere in between, just talking to car dealers every day. And then as that kind of went on, that went on for a couple of years. And then, one day woke up and was out making visits, and it was right after a buyout and corporate restructured. And unfortunately, my time was called short from that. So I, was kind of left without a job there for a little while. So, it sucked for a little bit, and, it took some time to figure out what I wanted to do. But back when I was living in Banko, I mean, in St. Pete, I talked about, I've always wanted to start my own dealership. I think it'd be super cool to have a motorcycle dealership, be my own boss, things like that. And then, right when I had got let go, I just finished building a brand new house. So I was like, had that going on for me, and, just a couple of signs of just, maybe it was time for a fresh start. And I was just like going back and forth what I want to do. Do I want to get back in the auction business? Do I want to go somewhere else? Do I want to move somewhere else? Do I want to go maybe to Dallas or anywhere else? I just couldn't really figure out what I wanted to do. And then, so that probably went for about a month or two. And then, finally just woke up one day. I was like, I have to do something. And, talking to my dad, I was like, hey, why don't you take a chance? Why don't you do it now? So basically, I cashed up my house, sold pretty much everything I could that I owned, and I started Ride Your Way. And basically, what that was my version of trying to start my own dealership and provide power sport stuff, which was the primary. So motorcycles, boats, ATVs, dune buggies, anything like that. That was my primary focus. I would do cars and stuff on the side if people needed them, that sort of thing. But the primary focus was the motorcycle stuff because that's what I really enjoyed. I had a great time doing it. I raced ATVs when I was a kid, raced dune buggies and stuff in high school and college, had sponsorships and all that stuff. So it was a really fun time for me. I really enjoyed that side of power sports and that sort of thing. So I really wanted to take a chance to see what that life would look like. So the first day, woke up, went and bought a trailer in South Florida. On the way home, bought my first slingshot, and then the rest was history. So I was basically just on the road every day, buying motorcycles, either retailing them to customers or wholesaling them, going to a different dealership, dropping them off, making some money and that sort of thing. So that kind of was where I spent probably 9, 10, 11 months doing that. Was pretty much the main focus. And then I really started specializing in the slingshots. It was a really hot ticket item that people wanted, and I was able to find them pretty much all across the state. So I was just driving around, picking them up and selling them. And with that, pulling in the neighborhood, I always had a slingshot on a trailer and that sort of thing. And people just got talking to me and they're like, hey, what is that? What's it like? That sort of thing. Like, oh, it'd be really cool to rent it. And, I took those conversations and just kind of was like, whatever, I'll just take the money and, sell them, that sort of thing. And then enough people came to me and were like, hey, like that would be really fun to rent. Like, would you ever consider doing it? And after enough of those conversations came up, I was like, you know what, maybe that is something that I need to think about. So I went and I bought a couple of them. I started renting them out. And then from there, just kind of really got legs in itself. So we were renting them and I was still doing the wholesale and the retail and that sort of thing. So I had a good little thing going. And then I found an opportunity. All that was going on in New Smyrna Beach, Florida. And then got a call one day about an opportunity for a contract with Polaris itself to do the rentals. And they had an opportunity in Tampa. And I was like, maybe that could be something that would really be something I'd really be into. There was a lot of legwork behind it. I mean, there's a lot of hoops to jump through and things like that, but having that name brand, want to work with you was something, it was an opportunity I couldn't pass up. So again, took everything I had, cashed it all up, and then went into Polaris and was like, hey, here's a check and let's do business. And then so that's how I ended up back over here in Tampa. And so yeah, we have a fleet of slingshots. We rent them out, and there's just avid customers coming in and out every weekend and that sort of thing. Just going out, experiencing something new, and going, having something fun to do. And that's kind of what I really want to do. I have such a big passion for this industry. I just wanted to bring that industry to as many people as I can, because I really think it's a lost art. And I think some people just don't know what they're missing. And I think one thing good that happened with COVID, once, the restrictions stuff were lifted, people wanted to go out and experience life again. They wanted to go try new things and have experiences. They didn't want to buy material objects. They wanted to go somewhere new, get the hotel room, get the Airbnb or whatever the case may be. And let's go jet ski riding. Let's go rent a convertible, go cruise. Let's go get a slingshot. Let's go try something out. And that's kind of the niche that I found and wanted to provide that opportunity for as many people as I possibly could. And so, yeah, that's kind of where we sat for Ride Your Way. So that's been going on for a couple of years now. So it's just it's always been a passion project of mine. I was selling motorcycles and stuff through college, needed beer money and, rent was due and that sort of thing. So, we were buying them on the weekends, fixing them up and selling them. And then, so that was just a natural thing for me to do was to finally, do it professionally. And so that opportunity came about, and yeah, I'm at today.
At risk of ruining the only serious conversation I think we've ever had in the 11 and a half years we've known each other, I'm going to ask a very dumb question. So I
Okay.
apologize in advance to any motorheads out there. Is the slingshot the actual type of car or like type of vehicle? I know what it looks like when I see one on the street. I can say, oh, that's a slingshot. Is
Right.
it specifically like Polaris is the only company that builds a slingshot, or is slingshot the like two front wheels, one back wheel, really cool thing that we see whipping around the streets?
Yeah. So Slingshot itself is its own brand. So Polaris is the only one who makes the actual slingshot. So that the
Okay.
slingshot is the one that like you sit in and it looks and feels like a car. There's other three-wheeled products, but those are more like your motorcycle driven. So that's from a different manufacturer. So those are like your Spiders and your Rikers. There's still two wheels in the front, one in the rear, but those are more like you're sitting like in that posture, like you're riding a motorcycle. Slingshot is specifically to Polaris. Um, but yeah, so it's classified as an auto cycle. So you don't need a motorcycle license for it. So that's why they're so popular to rent, because all you need is just a standard driver's license. So that's why they are so popular. There's tons of different things you can do to them with accessories and things, but yeah, so that's kind of um where that is. But yeah, it's specifically there's no, it's not like what is it? Not all tissues or tissues and Kleenex,
Kleenex.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Kleenex is the gen or the specific term, but everyone calls them that. But that's not this situation here. It's all a player slingshot is a player slingshot. There's another company called Vanderhall, which similar type kind of build, but they're a little more like narrow and lean. They don't have like that kind of big stance like the slingshot does. But yeah, there's only one company that makes the slingshot.
Well, I'm walking out of here learning something new today.
Well, hey, I'm doing my part, right?
I mean, that kept it serious. I don't know why you were worried about that not keeping it serious. That was a good question, honestly.
Yeah,
Um,
It's
good question for us
yeah.
novices to the industry, I
Well, I
suppose.
mean,
But
yeah.
we
I
have
mean, not
Q.
necessarily, right?
I'm scared to sound stupid in front of Q.
Yeah. Okay.
that's I mean
Yeah.
that's fair, but like at the same time, like I've been roommates with him for a combined almost year now. We're almost there. And I didn't know any of this. Like, I didn't know your grandfather owned a dealership. I didn't know any of this history of like. I thought you were just like your dad was in the business and he got in the business. I mean, I think what 2 or 3 weeks ago we were talking about your dad and he was in the Air Force and all this. I didn't know any of this until like the last like month. So like that tells how many serious conversations we actually have
You're
Yeah.
such
I
a good
mean,
friend.
yeah. I don't
had.
know. I mean, I think most people who know me would say like I do have like a serious side, but I don't think a lot of people actually know that side of me. I mean, I just like to have fun, and I think that's the side because I mean, I try to keep work not in a bad way, but work and pleasure kind of separated. And I think when if I'm gonna turn the off switch off on work, like I just want to have fun. But like, yeah, I mean, I mean, probably way more that I probably could go in depth with, but yeah, that's kind of just where to keep everything super high level. Because I mean, I could go on for hours talking about all the backstories and stuff. I don't think people care enough about me to hear all that. So, but yeah,
Well,
we'll
you're on a
keep it.
podcast, so this is the time to actually go in depth.
Well, I guess I mean if you want me to lead into something, just let me know. I mean,
No, I,
I'll certainly expand upon anything. But yeah, that's yeah, like I said, it's a family thing. I mean, my dad grew up racing cars and all that stuff, so like I've always been around. If it had a motor, wheels, and you could race it, wreck it, and fix it, I've pretty much done it. So it's just kind of been my life. It's not been. I mean, I grew up playing all the sports. I played football, basketball, baseball. I played lacrosse in high school. So I mean, like I spent my time doing the conventional stuff, playing for your school teams and things like that. But there was always just that passion to do something outside of that norm that I've always felt like I've always been a little different in that respect. I mean, always, transferred to a different high school after my freshman year. I've never really done anything the conventional way. I think the next thing I'd probably do in life would probably be starting a moving company, because I've moved so many times in my life, and Banko's moved as well. So I could probably stay in business just with him. But but yeah, I've always, before I've always kind of been stuck in my ways about, certain places I want to go and live and things like that. And I think I've really tried to change that about myself and kind of be open to more opportunities and things like that. And that's kind of how I've kind of leaned into, my current role, back in the auto auction business. So, we kind of briefly touched upon it in the intro, but I recently went back to work for the auto auction, handling commercial accounts. So basically dealing with bank repossessions and things like that. So, on a weekly basis, I'm in charge of anywhere between 275 to 350 cars a week that we're selling at our auction. So, and I have a great group of people I work with, between inside coordinators and outside coordinators, getting body shop work done, mechanic shop work done, getting the cars staged, lined up for sale, things like that. So it's a completely different side of the business for me that I've never really been in. It's all a lot more admin work and things like that versus when I was out in the streets every day, trying to hunt cars down. Now the cars are on property, and it's my job to, get them ready and keep our clients happy. So it's definitely a different world for me. So definitely balancing the, I do that job Monday through Friday. Then on the weekends, I have the rental. So, I work 7 days a week, and, Adam, I know with which all the stuff you've had going on in your life, the struggle as well. And I think even Erin talked about it on her pod. When you have a passion, stuff you like, you have to make a ton of sacrifices. And that's what I don't think a lot of people really understand. So you tell someone, oh yeah, I'm a business owner, and immediately they think, oh, you have all the money in the world, you do great. You don't have to you have no deadlines or whatever. Like, you make your own schedule, you do whatever you want, that sort of thing. But I don't think, and I didn't even realize, how in depth it was going to be when I started my business. But like, you miss out on so much life as well. And you have to be, if you're not truly passionate about something, you'll get swallowed alive so quickly. But I don't think people understand, there's times, you have to miss the weddings, the bachelor parties, the birthdays, the holidays. Working on Christmas Eve, New Year's. You want to go out, you want to have fun, but at the same time too, those are your customers. And, it sucks, but at the same time too, if you want to survive, that's what you have to do. And then, your friends and family, they don't see your bank account with all the minuses, with all the money going out, and you're just hoping that, the money comes in, you know what I mean? It's a struggle, but it's, if you're worth, or if you have that passion, you're willing to fight for it, then that's what this sacrifice you have to make. And that's kind of what I've chosen to do. Banko probably gets tired of trying to make plans with me to go do stuff, because it's like, hey, let's go do something this weekend. All right. And then I get a phone call. Oh, dude, I got a rental. I'm sorry. Like, I can't go anymore. Like, I feel bad. We can't go play golf now. But, that's, when the phone rings, I have to answer it. So, and that part's been tough and been very eye opening for me as well. I thought I had an idea of what it was going to be like, but it, from one extreme to a complete other. And I just, it's, I feel like now is a time in my life where I wanted to take that chance, and see where these opportunities would take me. And that's where I'm at now. And I'm happy I've done it. And we'll just kind of see where it goes from there. But yeah, it's been definitely a grind, and something that I enjoy, because I enjoy the business and things like that. But yeah, it definitely takes a lot out of you. 7 days a week isn't fun, but it's what I signed up for. Well, whether I knew it or not, it's what I signed up for, and it's what I'm here for. So that's what I like to do now.
I'm going to press you on something a little bit. You had mentioned in the first answer, at the tail end of the first answer, how much you believe in separating work from pleasure, trying to keep work at work. And that's part of the reason why we don't have more serious conversations, whether it's when we were all roommates, whether it's you guys as roommates now, or just in our group chat or anything like that. So when you work 7 days a week and you are at the mercy of somebody calling for a rental, or you have to fight a fire in a moment that you never expected to pop up, how do you create that separation? Because like you said, you guys could have plans at any given moment, and last second you have to cancel it. So how do you manage that, and then like how do you overcome it really so you can still enjoy yourself?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely have to sit down and, like, if I prioritize what I true like, there are certain moments that, like, I can't miss in life. Like, there's certain people, like weddings and engagements and things like that. There's certain people in my life who, like, I would do anything in the world for, and I wouldn't miss, like, those opportunities. And those days, I have to bite the bullet, and, I'll if I have someone, usually, like, my dad will help me out in some occasions, but, like, I don't try to rely on that too much. But, if there's something I really want to do or need to do, then I'll take that, and then, I take the loss on the business for that day. But I mean, I would say 95% of my time, it's all, um, you know, when the business calls, I answer. I wish it wasn't like that at some points in life, because I mean, I'm still young, like to have fun and things like that. And like I mentioned, I mean, you miss out on those events, but I prioritize a couple. I when my friends tell me, "Hey, we're doing this and this," and it's something I really want to, or if I need to do something, then I go for it, and I just have to, I sacrifice that weekend. I think I rationalize it with myself. If I know every weekend that, like, I am working, and I'm, in the office taking the phone calls and things like that, it makes a weekend easier to take off if I do want to have a personal day or weekend or whatever the case may be. Because I mean, at some points I do get burned out, and I just have to try to fight through it. But I mean, I make sure if I'm going to, like, step away from the business, it is a full step away, and you know, I I handle that whatever I need to do in that specific weekend or time, whatever the case may be. I handle that, but you know, when I'm in those doors and the lights are on, it's all business all the time for me. And I think I don't really have an off switch when it comes to it. I mean, I stay up late. I try to go to bed early. I just lay awake at night and stare at the ceiling, like, what's next? And it's terrible, and I wish I didn't have that mentality, but I have a hard time turning my brain off, especially at night. I mean, I have to sleep with the TV on, so I like, if the TV's off, then my brain just keeps going. So, like, I mean, I'm sure Banko probably hates it. I probably have the TV on super loud at night and probably hears it from across the house there. But, like, I have to have that background noise, or I just, like, kind of go insane. So I don't know if that's kind of really the answer you're looking for there, but, like, I try to take into account, as much as I can to experience life, but at the same time too, I mean, in order for the business to grow, you have to make those sacrifices, and that's kind of where I'm at. I just have to buckle down and do that when it's necessary, which is pretty much all the time.
I think it's more upstairs neighbor that's the issue than anything, not your TV that's the noise issue, but we
Yeah,
won't go
fair
into
enough.
that.
Yeah,
Um,
our free DJ on the weekends or during the
yeah,
week, every
exactly,
day of the week. Yeah, wonderful
exactly.
person.
I mean, I would say you're pretty good at, like, from what I've seen in the balancing, and I wouldn't call it rationalizing. I mean, a lot of the times, like, some of the stuff is out of your control. Like, yes, there is reservations and times when things are supposed to be done and your day's supposed to be over. And, like, we've had plans where it's like, all right, I'll be done at 10:30, 10:45, 11, and I'll do my thing in the morning, like, whatever. And I'll text you, be like, yeah, that, like, I'm waiting. I have to wait for this slingshot to get back, and 2, 3 hours, 4 hours pass by, and it's like they're still not back. So there is some general public out of control stuff that you deal with on a day to day. I mean, looking at sort of like you were on the corporate side of the car dealer's business, and then you went on your own, started your own thing, and now you're doing both. I guess looking at both scenarios, I mean, what do you kind of like, not like about both sides?
I mean, I think if we'll go on the corporate side too. I mean, you have a paycheck every 2 weeks. You know what I mean? You have that stability, you have that comfort. knowing, hey, at the end of, I'm not going to go, I'm not relying on, you know, bad weather. Bad weather in the rental business, in a convertible business, you're screwed. You know what I mean? You're not making money that weekend. But in the corporate side, you have the stability, you have more of a path of success. If you do well, there's different, you can climb the ladder and things like that, and you can take yourself to, a whole new world and dimension and things like that with, wherever your career takes you with how hard you work. I want, not guaranteed, but you have more opportunity for advancement and things like that when you're in that corporate structure, especially in the auto bit. Once you're in the automotive industry, you're in it for life pretty much. You get hooked to it. It's almost like a drug. It is truly addicting. Just whether you're on the retail side or the wholesale side, it definitely, once you get in on it, and everyone moves around and things like that. You'll meet people in Florida and then they move to Dallas, or they move to California and Texas, or Nashville, or wherever the case may be. You have contacts everywhere. So, it's a super big world. You never know where you'll end up, and you just meet all kinds of people and opportunities come around. So like that networking with the corporate life is definitely nice. But as far as, with the owning your own business and the rentals and things like that, you can kind of put your image as what you want. You can be however you want to portray yourself in your business is what you can do. You have that flexibility of, do you want to work on the weekend? Okay, cool. Do you not? Do you want to work 2 or 3 days during the week, or do you want to work all 7 days? You have the ability to have that flexibility. Whether or not you're going to make any money, no, that's kind of up to you. But I would say, I'm a pretty prideful person, and I take in like, when I have Google reviews and things like that, like, they truly mean a lot to me. And I really, the feedback that comes back, like a 1-star review. Fortunately I've never had that, but like I had like a 3-star review one day that just like destroyed me. Even though, 3 stars good, but like, a guy that complained about the pricing that I had, I cut him a deal on, to start with, but he still gave me not a bad review, but like, I thought I did tons to help him out and make his experience great. And I got 3 stars, and I have a ton of 5-star reviews. So like, things like that, I take a ton of pride if I'm going to put my name next to something, and I really like to see other people enjoying it. So like, that feedback is awesome, especially when you're a small business owner. It means so much more, I think, when you can connect with the people. It's not a 30,000 foot view from, corporate America, and things are just transactional and things like that. You have a little bit more of that personal interaction, though sometimes I can't stand people, when they're supposed to be back at 11 o'clock and they don't come back till 3 o'clock, and I'm supposed to go to lunch and hang out with people, you know what I mean? It's just like, all right, well, my day is like now destroyed because of someone. And so that part definitely stinks, but it comes with the territory as well. So both sides of the coin are awesome and have their negative sides as well. And I think it's a good dose of reality on both sides that I enjoy. And, they both kind of feed off each other in some ways or another. So it's definitely something that I like to deal with. And you learn when you're on the auction side, you see everything in that light. And then you go over and start doing it on your own, and then you see things from a different side when you're the one cutting the checks to buy the motorcycles and things like that, and the experience. So now, like, going back to the auction side, like, I have a whole different mindset now. So not only was I doing dealer sales, I was the business owner. I was the one buying the product. I was doing the experience. So now I can relate to when customers are coming in and things like that. I have a really good sense of all facets of the business. And I think not a lot of people get. They kind of get stuck if they're a car salesman, they only know that side. Or if they only on the auction, they only know that. If they're fortunate enough to run their own business, they only see that side of it. They don't understand all the different components that makes the week go by and transactions happen. And I think I've been super fortunate to kind of understand that and experience it on all sides. And I'm super humbled with it as well. I mean, I think it's not a lot of people are fortunate enough to have the opportunities that I've had and what I've earned through my life so far. And I don't take it lightly, the success and the failures that I've had. I mean, I learned a lot and I've failed a lot. So it makes the successes that much more fun to actually enjoy.
Getting to experience both sides, you said you've been able to apply stuff from the corporate side into your personal business as well as from your personal business into the corporate side.
Right.
What specifically are things that really have set you apart or that you feel in the long run make you different from somebody else in the industry? Like tricks of the trade or little tips, things you've picked up along the way, just because you have this really unique position on both sides of the aisle.
You're trying to give
Yeah.
his moat away here.
What was
Yeah.
that?
I said you're trying to give his moat advantage away here, like
Yeah.
making him give up his secrets.
No, those aren't secret. This is a unique position. This is what we need to learn. This is why we do this.
I wish I had a real answer for you on like I had like a secret sauce or whatever the case may be. I think the only thing that I really control is my attitude on a daily basis. No matter how, like, on my corporate side, no matter how stressed out or anything that I have going on, I always try to make sure I have like that, the upbeat personality and all that stuff, kind of like the stuff that you guys see, you know, in my social life and things like that. When we hang out, I try to bring that a little more tame uh, in the into the corporate world. But like, I try to be that fun guy who tries to keep the office light and things like that. But I always try to have a good attitude and provide customer service. I try to see everyone's side and kind of like what you spoke about, Adam. I have all sides of the spectrum kind of covered. Not super. I don't have a ton of experience, lengthwise in all the different realms, but I have enough in the different sectors to understand what's going on. So I try to keep those things in mind as I'm having my conversations, and just try to be real and truthful and have great customer service. I mean, if we mess up or something like that, I always try to own up to those opportunities. But I think the only thing you can really control is your attitude and you know and your effort, and those are the only two things. I mean, that's my only secret, I guess. I mean, I'm willing to do the work and I make sure all my slingshots are clean. You know what I mean? I clean them out. I put tire shine in all of them. So when the customer comes in, it looks like a brand new car as soon as they come in. And when they leave, I clean them up and do it again for the next person. I try to provide the same customer service and respect to anybody, whether they have $5 to their name or $5 million to their name, because you never know what's going on in their life. And if you provide that good experience, you never know what benefits that could provide, not to get too deep, but just in the long term for people. But I mean, I think that's just the only thing I really try to do, just try to make everyone's day, I mean, as good as possible. And I just don't, if I make a mistake, I'll admit to it. And I think a lot of people would say that about me. I mean, I'll own up to anything that I do if I'm right, wrong, or indifferent. But I think I just try to be the best person I can be on my personal side, and just let that lead into my corporate and to my, into my personal business on, having the slingshots and the rentals and the retail and all that stuff. So I think good things come to good people, and I try to be the best person I can be on a day-to-day basis.
Would
Was that
you like to
was it
hop in, Banko, or would you like me to continue?
You can
was that too
continue.
deep?
No, it was
No,
good.
too deep,
I
man. No, there's no such thing.
had you guys speechless there for a second.
Yeah,
I don't know. I don't know if we can ever look at each other the same after this conversation. I feel like I'm
I
like
know
opening
that
up.
I do feel a little bit like that. I'm getting a whole new side of Q here. Uh, I I want to step back to something. Maybe this is a little bit slightly lighter. You mentioned
Okay.
earlier how addicting this industry is. It maybe is something that's indescribable, but as an outsider, cars to me or motor vehicles, it's more of a method of transportation for me. I think it's because I wasn't exposed to it at a young age. I know this is literally a part of your life, your childhood, your family, everything that the Thompsons do. There's a motor involved in it in some capacity.
Pretty much.
What are certain things that you think are so addicting? Is it the sales for you? Is it the relationships? Is it the travel that comes with this? Is there anything that you're getting exposed to that you can kind of pick out as the thing that like keeps you going or keeps you hooked?
I think my favorite thing is when I sell somebody their first toy. So their first motorcycle, their first boat, or whatever they're buying. Those people are the ones that really keep me going. That when they're so excited when they come in, and that they're whether this is going to be a toy for them, or maybe it is going to be their mode of transportation. I had a girl who came in and bought a motorcycle, and that was going to be her daily driver every day. So she wanted certain things in her bike. She was a little bit timid about the size of the bike, the color, things like that. It is, and it's an investment. I mean, these things aren't cheap anymore. They used to be, relative, not that they're not affordable now, but everything in life is expensive. But when I can put someone on a motorcycle who's maybe nervous or excited or whatever their original emotion is, and they come out, they sign that deal, whatever, we take their picture, and they just have a big smile on their face. And that's what really keeps me going in that. And they come back to you and they want to buy, you know, a sticker kit or a helmet or exhaust or whatever, and they come back and they tell you, "Oh, I went and did this and this. Like we rode over here and things like that." Like that stuff to me is incredible. And kind of like you mentioned, this has been in my family forever, and this is what I've been doing my entire life. So being able to help more people get involved in that is awesome to me. And then selfishly on my side, I mean, there is nothing more fun to me than you know getting up in the morning, throwing on some like jeans and t-shirt and hop on a motorcycle, turn the Bluetooth on and just cruise. Like there's like my most stressful days, if I can be on a motorcycle for 45 minutes to an hour, I come back the happiest person you'll ever meet. Like there, and if that's something I could bottle up, I'd probably be a millionaire selling that feeling, that rush when you have that wind in your face. And I would say hair, sorry, Adam.
Whatever.
But like when you had like that feeling of, they call it throttle therapy, but it's something you just cannot describe. You just feel so free and excited, that it's truly indescribable. You just feel like you're on a whole other world. Nothing else matters. Your phone's tucked away. You're not texting and driving. You're not doing those sort of things. Maybe you're changing a song at the red light, but you're just, and for me, if I'm on a bike, I'm on the back roads. It's just me and nature. You know what I mean? I'm not on the highway and things like that. I'm looking off the coast, looking at the waves, going through the trees and things like that. Like it's just you just feel like you're just more connected than you ever felt, and like you can just truly get away. Like you have your phone with you, but it's tucked away. You're on your bike. Maybe you ride your bike and you go to you go to a diner, or you meet another small business owner and things like that. Like there's something about that feeling of just being out on the road and doing something. And it might just be the same drive you make every day in your car, but you notice something different when you're on a bike or you're in a slingshot or whatever the case may be. There's just something about when you're cruising down the road and you just have that wind in your face, it just changes your whole mood. And no matter if you ride for 5 minutes, 5 hours, or 5 days straight, you come home and you're just so happy. Like you just have an entire weight lifted off your shoulders. And it's just, some people work out, some people do other things. They go skydiving or whatever. They go train for triathlons. They go play hoops or whatever the case may be. And I try to do all that stuff, but I mean, it's truly addicting. To get any chance I can get on a bike, I take that opportunity because Doesn't come often, but when it does, I think it's like a full reset for me, physically, emotionally, mentally. It just gets me right. Because I mean, I do, work so often. So when I do need to recharge, like it's a full reset. And I think that's where, I try to balance that out so I don't get like super burnt out and then need like a super hard reset. But if I can work in those days in between when I'm starting to feel super stressed, work those in and just calm myself down. Um, but yeah, I think there's just not a feeling that can ever represent or describe truly, because everyone's experience doing something is different, but just the feeling of just almost euphoria of being out on the road and doing something different, it's awesome. It truly is.
I mean, sticking sort of with that point, I mean, moving more back to like selling a person their first motorcycle, first boat, etc. Did you, I mean, because you said you started on the side of like inspecting most cars. So, like, did you get that feeling or that opportunity to sell that first thing to somebody in the corporate side of the world? Or did it take sort of that being let go, that unfortunate scenario, you to start Ride Your Way to actually get that experience of selling your first thing, toy to a customer?
Yeah, I mean, like I kind of mentioned a while ago, I would kind of sell some motorcycle stuff on the side personally, so I kind of got a hint of that. But like in the corporate side, like at the auction, it's our business and then to another dealership. So it's not like to the public and things like that. And everything's just kind of like a transaction. So like a car comes up, it goes onto the auction block. It's there for 30, 45 seconds. Then it's gone. And the next one comes through. I mean, we run anywhere from 700 to 800 cars a week at the auction I'm currently at right now. So like, it's just a transaction. You know what I mean? It's all it is. So you don't get that feeling. I mean, if you have like a friend or something who is like in the business and they just started, maybe you kind of get that, but it's not. It's more the corporate side's more of the transactional side. You don't like, especially like when I was inspecting cars, like I would inspect them and then put them up for the auction. And then like my manager would handle all the negotiations and all the actual selling. And he'd be like, hey, we sold, if I did 50 cars that week, hey, we sold like 35 of them. All right, cool. I mean, that feels great. Yeah, we sold a good amount. But then you do it again the next, like that business, it never stops. Like the reward, I mean, you got paid really well. So that was obviously kind of like that feeling of, when your bonus hit, that was awesome. But yeah, it's not as connected in that regard. I mean, you'll build relationships with with dealers and things like that. You'll get to know them. Maybe you'll do stuff outside of work with them, but mainly it's all just that business to business transaction. We have the cars, they need the cars, we sell them and they're gone, and we do it again the next week. You know what I mean? So you kind of you get numb to it a little bit. We'll walk by cars every day. Oh, there's a Ford Raptor, there's a Jeep Wrangler, there's this, that, and a Mustang, or there's a Corvette. You walk by them every day and you just get numb to them. Like you could have $100,000 car, and then you have the $4,000 car or $500 car. You see it all, and you almost just get blind to it because it's all about getting that car, getting it stickered on the spot, and getting it ready for Monday, which is my sale day. Getting it ready for Monday, and then sell it. And then as soon as that sale's over, we're already working on the next week's sale. So like you lose that excitement, and that's just like my position. I think if you're the sales manager or a sales rep for like the actual dealership, you kind of get that again. But like on the corporate side where I'm currently at, yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong, I do have a passion for it and I do love it. It's a different feeling of, it's more spreadsheets and reports and tracking and things like that, more so than it is about the actual where does that car go from here sort of thing, or that bike or whatever the case may be. It's more just, hey, I need this gone so I can do it again next week. You kind of lose a little bit of that excitement. But yeah, it's certainly different. It's a different side of the coin. I think that's what's great about my other side is I do still get that. So even though I'm not buying where I work from, I still kind of get that vibe or that passion still of still being able to sell to someone else. So it definitely scratches the itch I have.
I
No, that
have
makes
a
a lot.
question now for both of you, if that's okay. I suppose half of Q of all of Banko.
Can
Q,
we
you
pause
mentioned,
and I can follow up on that really quick?
what'd
I
you say? Sorry.
like I want to follow up on that comment, and then we can.
Yeah,
Are you
follow
going
up.
are you going a different route?
I would, yeah, to an
Okay.
extent.
All
So
right.
you follow up.
This
I'm not going to
yeah
forget it. I'm good.
yeah okay. All right. Maybe write it down because we have forgotten before. But I was just gonna ask, like, do you think that you would have actually started Ride Your Way if that firing and letting go didn't happen? So, like, if you were just in corporate America, corporate car dealership auctions, and that just continued on, and you continue to stay in your roles and continue, do you think you would have actually taken that chance?
Um, I would like to say yes. Um, it's always been a dream of mine to have that. And like I said, I mean, I know you and I mean, never got in depth with it, but I always said it'd be fun to do that. When we lived together the first time, I would like to think that I would have that opportunity to do it. I mean, I'm fortunate enough right now where I don't have. I mean, I have my parents, but I don't have a family. I don't have a wife and the kids and things like that. So I think had maybe if that part of my life had was here now, maybe not because I have other people to think about, to provide for and things like that. So I think the safety of your corporate America job, I think would probably have kept me locked in. I think I would always have that in the back of my mind, like, hey, what if or could I ever? Um, I would like to think eventually in my life that I would get to that point of having it and having that opportunity. Maybe it was just a retirement thing, like when I was, you know, 60 or 70, whenever I ever get to retire in life, maybe that'd be something to keep me busy because I don't think I'll ever be the type of person to retire and then just like sit around the house. Like I'm probably gonna have to do something. So I would like to think I would have that like I would still do it if I'm being honest. I don't know if it would happen as like right now in my life. I don't think it would have happened had I not been let go and the curtain got called and that sort of thing, in that respect. So I would like to say yes, but to give you the 100% honest answer, I have no idea. Like I said, I always thought about it and doing it, but I think I needed like that push over the edge, like, hey, it's put up or shut up. Like, are you going to do it? Like, now's the time. And I think just on not perfect circumstance, because you never want to like get squeezed out of a position, but like, I think it was a perfect circumstance for me to actually take that leap of faith and do it and see what happens. So I would like to think so, but you can never guess what would really happen.
Continuing on that, timing is never perfect for anybody, for anything.
Right.
You're always going to find something that can hold you back. And you just took advantage of a serendipitous moment of you always had a dream, you were out of work for a month, and you could just hop on with another auction company or move somewhere else and do the same thing again. But you would have this dream that you would just be saying to yourself, the timing wasn't right. I didn't have the funds. I didn't have the security. And at that time, I'm sure you wanted or needed security more than anything else. But also, you were in your mid 20s, late 20s, and why not? You have nobody else to look after beside yourself. So really,
Right.
like at the end of the day, that is the perfect time to do it. Because if you fail at 25, 26, 28, it's so easy to get back to where you need to be by 32, 35. Versus if you take the risk at 40, you can be impacting yourself or others in all likelihood. And it just becomes so much more difficult to climb the farther you get in life. At least that's my perspective as
Yeah,
a
and
30-year-old. I could be wrong.
right. No, and I would 100% agree with you. You mean, yes. I mean, when, like, I'll never forget where I was when I got that phone call saying, "Hey, like, you're done." Like, I was literally in Sanford, Florida. I was in my car, just got out of a dealership getting cars, and like I had a number on my phone that it was like, on the iPhone, like if you don't have like a number saved, like it says like maybe so and so or whatever, and it said like like not my boss, but like my boss's name, and I was like, I've never like really talked to her like at any point in time, and you just like when that number came up, and like and that empty feeling in my stomach was like, this is kind of like, what's this about? And she's like, hey, I think she might have said like HR or something on the phone with me. And I was like, ooh, that's not good. Um, and so I was like, immediately, like, oh, what happened? Like, not that I was ever guilty of anything. I was like, did I do something? Did something like come up? And then like, there's, you kind of get the, hey, unfortunately, we're downsizing, things like that. We don't have room, you know, we're sorry to say, hey, like, we're gonna cut ties. And it's like, oh, okay. I woke up, I think it was like a Wednesday morning. It was like 9:30 or 10. And I was just like, now what do I do? Like literally like my entire day, like I had already started my day. I was making visits, and I was just like, what do I do? So I mean, I did what I would typically do. I called my dad. I was like, hey, uh, by the way, I just got let go. And he's like, quit messing with me, whatever. And I was like, no, dude, like I'm like, no, dad, like I'm being serious. Like this is a real situation. He's like, all right, well, figure it out. Like he was super encouraging, like not in like a negative way, but he was like, all right, well, hey, we'll figure out what you got to do. You know what I mean? So, and that was, and it was kind of funny. I mean, we've kind of brought the topic up a couple of times, but like the same time when I got let go was like one of the last times that I actually like texted you two in a group text. And I texted you guys when you guys first launched your podcast, and sent congrats or whatever. And then like I scrolled like 3 or 4 messages, and it was like the last minute, for whatever reason, I don't know why I was texting you guys about, I was like, oh yeah, by the way, guys, I just lost my job.
Yeah, I was gonna ask how quickly you texted us, because I was gonna bring that up because I remember we were getting ready for to go to work when you were texting us about the podcast, and then you're like, "Oh, I texted you about firing 2 years ago."
Yeah, it was kind of like a surreal moment. Like I said, like when you guys launched the podcast, I texted like congrats or whatever, and then like it's like, oh, because I mean like we hang out and talk and stuff, but like not that we would be in a group chat and like continue to talk. We have a bigger group chat and stuff that we keep in touch with. But yeah, and I was like, I scrolled up and I was like, oh, this is kind of like a kind of a weird moment too. Like now here I am 2.5 years later, whatever the case may be. And now we're talking about like where my life has been since then. So it's kind of a cool moment. I mean, I'm glad I have a place to kind of spill my life story at, and hopefully someone listens.
That was also like your first week at your new job, wasn't it? That when we started, I think it was pretty close.
Yeah, I don't think
When
it,
was your first week?
what month are we in right now?
May.
I think April 3rd was,
Okay.
I think,
It
my
was like
first
two
day.
weeks later. April
Yeah,
17th is when
yeah,
we
whatever. I
launched
think it
it.
was like
So
the first. It was the 3rd. If that was a Wednesday in April, I think that was the my first start date. But yeah, so like it's kind of like a full circle moment here where it's like, oh yeah, by the way, guys, I don't have a job, and then here we are now. So it's kind of, yeah, it sucked for a while, but I mean, I think it's made me a better person today, going through a little bit of that hardship. Um, you don't ever think about getting fired. What's that feeling like, that emptiness, and then it's, you figure it out, and that's what I kind of did, and I'm glad. I mean, you hope to never be fired again. I mean, I don't think anyone ever wakes up like, hell, hey, can't wait to be fired today. But like, sometimes there is a lot of good in the negativity, you can definitely find a positive out of things. So I think, taking things with stride and not getting so worked up with it. I used to always get worked up and like stressed out about things I couldn't control. And then I think this business has taught me you just can't do it. Like, you'll get eaten alive if you do. So it's been fun just to try to reinvent myself and figure out how to actually just manage everyday life as well. So it's been an adventure, and I don't think anything I'll ever do in my life will be conventional or easy. So I just kind of roll with it and take it in stride.
So do I have permission to go back now, or do we want to continue this momentum about Q getting fired, finding himself, and starting a business?
I think we've got. I don't think we should milk it. So, like, yeah, you can go to your question.
Okay. Again, for both of you, half of Q, all of Banko, because
So who
Banko was
answers?
corporate his whole life.
Who
What did you
answers
say?
first? Who answers
Well,
first?
you
in this
can take
scenario?
it. You're the guest.
Okay.
But you talked earlier about going the extra mile, or at least as far as I'm concerned, it's going the extra mile. It's the stuff that it's not in your job description, but it's something that means a lot to you. It's making sure every slingshot that you get in is cleaned. It looks pristine. It's the most beautiful vehicle that your next customer has ever seen before they take it out for their own experience. Now, I get that fully from the entrepreneurship side. There's little things that I try to do with Flex Pro Grip or in my previous work that I know I tried to do that wasn't maybe necessary, but I felt if I didn't do it, I wasn't providing the service that I think my customers or my clients, athletes deserve. So now I'm curious if there is something in the corporate world that like this resembles, because I don't have that experience. I can't fathom it. Is there something that you do? Because to me, I think that takes a special person to recognize how important that added value is. And I'm curious if you're able to sprinkle that in the corporate world at all, whether for both of you.
Yeah, I would say, I mean, in the corporate world, I mean, like I said, like, one thing I don't ever try to refer to anyone as, like, I'll call them my team, but I don't ever refer to anyone as like my employees. They're always my coworkers. No matter if the hierarchy shows if I'm above or whatever, I always try to see everyone as a coworker. And I try to be as transparent and open as possible to everyone and help everyone see the big picture. And I, try to have conversations, get to know my coworkers and things like that. Take an interest in their life, um, and as we're working through problems, explaining what I see in a problem, how I think the solution is going to be. But when I present a solution to that problem, it's not what I say goes. I try to make everything collaborative. If I'll bring something out and like, hey, we tried something like that before, didn't really work, but maybe we do this or we do that, and having that honest feedback. And I think when you do that, if you can get people excited about their work and things like that, if they see the job as I sit down, I clock in, I work, I clock out, I go home, you know, in the perfect world, no one would ever have to work. You know what I mean? We'd all just have money and hang out and do all that. But I mean, we have to make a living. So I think I try to make life enjoyable at work as well, be that upbeat guy and that sort of thing. I mean, there's times where I close my door and I scream in my office, but you know, I you know, that's just natural. But like as soon as I step out of the door frame, it's all smiles and happy go lucky and things like that. And I think just trying to keep everyone involved as much as possible and keep everyone excited. And I think when everyone's excited and working, more things get done, more problems get solved. Everyone takes a little more pride in their work, and then they go the extra mile. And then things like that, I think everyone's experience just really touches base. I think in our business, on my side, like customer service and things like that. It can, especially in the car business, there's a lot of like that grimy feeling in that world. Like, oh, he looks like a used car salesman and things like that. But like, you can break down those walls and barriers, and if you keep people excited and working and happy, this makes life so much easier in the workplace. And I think everyone gets along. There's none of that office drama and things like that. And that's really where I try to balance that out, because I don't have a team, on the other side, in the entrepreneurship side. It's just me. So like, getting that team atmosphere within work, I think, is so much fun, and just trying to everyone be the best person they can be throughout the week. I think it just makes life so much easier Monday through Friday.
Banko?
I'm trying to figure out the best way to approach this. I mean, to build off of cues, and I'll go back to my very first job in corporate America, which I was a customer service representative. So I was literally headphones on, clock in at 8:30, taking incoming phone calls from anybody from the public, financial advisors, etc., till 4:30. And I was then 4:30 hit, unless I was on a call, clock out, go home, and you didn't have to think about work. Um, and it was very much a very structured, and every call was recorded. They listened to the recording, like they would choose random calls. You had to meet certain metrics. You had to say certain things in certain ways, and you were graded on those calls, and you got satisfactory, unsatisfactory, and like there were sort of like penalties if you got unsatisfactory calls. I was lucky enough, and this sort of built on Q's point, to have a manager that she'd been doing it for 20 years. She started at the company, she worked her way up, and now she was managing the people. So she wasn't on the phone, but she knew what it was like to actually be on the phone. So she wasn't as structured or like diligent of like, this is exactly how you have to do it. She understood, like, was the customer at the other end of the line happy with what you provided to them in their service? And I think that was very beneficial from my point of view, because I think if I would have had a more structured manager where like you have to say these exact things, you have to be on the phone for this amount of time, you have to do this, I don't think that I would have been as open and understanding of the end consumer and the end client. Um, and I think that's benefited me going forward throughout all my jobs. I mean, because I took that approach, then you realize that, all right, the corporate world is kind of small. You could work for somebody 3 years ago, and then now you need it's not even a favor, but I mean, the most recent instance for me. So I was at this company right out of college, was there for 7, 8 years, and actually had a mentor that was early on in my career, like 2, 3 years into my career. And I just switched jobs 3 months ago. And how that happened was I found the role, I applied, and turns out she just started working there 4 months prior to me applying for the job. And I reached out to her on LinkedIn, was like, hey, saw this job posting, would love to just connect. Didn't ask for a favor, just literally was just like, I'd love to hear your experience at the new company. And then that led into me going through the interviews through in that process. I hadn't talked to her in 2, 3, 4 years. So very much realizing that every interaction that you have, no matter what level the person's at, matters, and treating every person with respect, and realizing that. And I'm not saying that from like, so it can benefit you, like you should just be a good person, but at the same time, that could benefit you in the long term. So I think a lot of what Q said there resonates from what I've experienced as well. But to get more into your question of going that extra mile, of like shining the tires, making it brand new for the slingshot on his personal business side, there's a balancing act in corporate America, because you could go the extra mile. You could work 18, 19 hours a day. I've never done that. I've never been in the investment banking world. But I mean, you could be required to work until 5:30 and work until 9 o'clock at night because you didn't get something done. And from a personal standpoint, like I've done that. And like I couldn't let myself not get stuff done on time or be good enough or like worthy of putting it out there. So I couldn't let myself not do that and just go home. But you might not necessarily get rewarded for that. There's definitely it's a more of a structured plan in corporate America of like, yeah, you could go the extra mile, but great. You're still in the same role, you're same title. That's not how we do things here. You need 2 more years experience to get promoted. This is just how things are done. So there is a balancing act of figuring that out of like what you personally can accept in your own work, but also providing good relationships and materials for the end client. So there is a balancing act in corporate America, I would say.
I think that last piece is super interesting. Now, maybe we can just have a three-way dialogue on this. Is I've been reading a lot about customer service lately, just trying to revamp some of what we're doing with FlexPro Grip. And one of the pieces that I read stated your personal standards, if they exceed your customer standards, you might be spending too much time on something, whether it's how long it takes for you to reach out to a customer. You might think you need to do it within an hour of that customer's outreach, but your customer base might only expect a 24-hour turnaround. And then you are hanging yourself out to dry or overextending yourself because you are taking on things like this. So I think you bring up a really cool point there in discussing that you can value things differently than your place of work, and you could be pushing towards something that you don't need to push towards, and you could be taking energy away from something that might actually be benefiting you more or might support your company more. And that it just isn't something that I had a lot of exposure to, because I'm sure Q can resonate with this with Ride Your Way. Is his name is on the company, so he's going to do every single thing in his power at all times to defend his name or protect his name and boost his name along the way. Versus when you have somebody else, I suppose it's just meet the guidelines. Yeah, give it your all at all times, but you might not need to put yourself out there as much. Is that fair?
Yeah, I mean, I'll speak from my experience. I mean, yeah, I mean, there's you can go after it and be like, you can work, if you're supposed to work 9 to 5 and get things done and things like that. And like you could work until 8 or 9 or 10 o'clock at night. Now, I mean, if you're supposed to get that work done by 5 o'clock and you're still working at 9, you know, yeah, you kind of fell behind, but you got the job done, which is great. But like, it's just because you work till 9 o'clock at night doesn't mean that you're any harder worker than anyone else. I think some people kind of get that mindset. It's like, oh yeah, well, I was here till 6 or 7 o'clock at night. I was doing this, this, and this, and this. Well, okay, that's not like a huge like selling point for yourself. Just because you work late doesn't mean you're actually getting more accomplished. I mean, you can probably, if you're dealing with clients and things like that, are you hearing or are you listening? And a client will tell you if you're having a genuine conversation and you actually listen to what a client is saying, the best thing you can do is just follow up with them. I mean, and that's in my business. I mean, when when a client comes in town and we're walking their cars and stuff that they rep, they'll make subtle comments and things like that I have to pick up on. Like, hey, the door jams and these Sprinter vans, they weren't clean. Um, it's a passing comment, right? Or they're um, there's like a smoke smell in the cars. Do y'all have like a service to clean those out and things like that? And like, it's just a passing comment, but like, I have to actually be listening and not hearing what my customer's saying. And then, 2 days later, I sent an email to them. It's like, hey, I went and followed up with our detail shop. And, unfortunately, we don't have a service to get rid of like that cigarette smell. We'll spray some Febreze or whatever in the car, try and help it out. But I mean, it's Florida, it's 100 degrees. I mean, the smell's just going to be there. So like, unfortunately, like, hey, there's nothing we can do there. And that, you'd want to be like, hey, oh, I'll go out and I'll go get this, this, and this, and this. But like, are you really doing that much more to help? when you gave them the answer, hey, right now we don't have the service, we'll look into it in the future, that sort of thing. You can strain yourself trying to be the perfect rep or the perfect person, but I mean, some things are just out of your control. But then you follow up like, hey, I talked to my detail guys and they're going to make sure that we're spending more time and attention on some of these cars and things like that. We'll get it cleaned up, and next time you're in town, it'll look better. And that email took me 3 minutes to type up, because I mean, I'm not the best typer. But I got a response back like immediately, and the guy was like, hey, I really appreciate it. Thank you so much for, following up with my concerns and things like that. And in the long run, if I mess up somewhere else, I've bought a little bit of goodwill for that account, because I did follow up, and, we're all human. We do make mistakes. Things fall behind the cracks, but he knows, hey, I'm still working, day in and day out on your account and getting things situated. I might miss something, but it's not because I don't care. It's because I am working on other things. And I think if you do what you're supposed to do and you do it correctly, you go way more than when you run around and you fall behind and you lie and things like that. And that's when you get caught up and things kind of spiral downhill. So, I mean, I'm all for going the extra mile and service with a smile, things like that, both in corporate and in the personal entrepreneurship side. Because, I mean, in that side, we don't get a ton of repeat customers. So it's all first impression. When they walk in, that's the expectations and all the stuff that I'm providing. I want every review to look the same, because it is the same. It's not here and there everywhere. Just on a good day, they got good service. So I think you can definitely go the extra mile, more so like in your situation, Adam. You can go the extra mile more because it means more. Your name's attached to it, your livelihood, things like that. Not saying that you can't on the corporate side. It just looks differently, and the rewards, at least in my position, I don't know about Banko's position, but the rewards aren't reaped as much, or it's not, you don't feel like it means as much. You're just kind of doing your job, unfortunately. But yeah, I mean, it's still, I think maybe sense of pride. Hey, I did it, and that sort of thing makes you feel better. But I don't think, and if your manager's good, then they'll reward you for that. But like on the court, as the company as a whole, it goes unnoticed, and it is what it is. And I think the faster you come to grips with that, makes life a lot easier, where it's not, hey, I'm just going hard every day just because it's going to get me advanced further. It's just, if you're doing the right thing, the opportunities will come to you.
Yeah, I would agree with what everything with you said, and I would go back to that first customer service job and having that understanding manager that I had, because so it was like 3 calls reviewed each month, and they're random, and you were taking 50 to 100 calls a day, so it could be anything and everything. And like you could get very satisfactory where you were perfect, you could get satisfactory, or you could get unsatisfactory. You had to say a certain thing up front, like you had to get their name, you had to get certain information, you had to say your name, you had to ask them, can I help you? Stuff like that. And from my point of view, I hate being on the phone with customer service. So I took the point of view of, I want to get off the phone as fast as possible and address the need of the customer. And one of the months, I think our average handle time for calls had to be around like 7.5 minutes. My average handle time was 4 minutes and 30 seconds, because I was just trying to rapid fire get off the phone. And you had weekly or monthly meetings with your manager. My manager saw that stat, and she goes, if you have one unsatisfactory call, we're going to talk. Otherwise, we're good. And I was like, all right. And I got one call checked, and it came back as satisfactory, which like I wasn't the happiest with, because you could listen after. And the only note that they said was I said too many times in the phone call. It was a 4-minute phone call. And I went to the person, I was like, why was this satisfactory? Blah, blah, blah. And they're like, you said too many times. But at the end of the call, the financial advisor is like, thank you. This was great. I'm glad you got everything done. I'm very happy. Like, he was happy. But because I said so like there's that balance of like, what does the customer want versus what are the rules or sort of stipulations, and there's that difference there. Um, Going further into my career, I think looking back at school and how I approach things and going back again to time and getting things to a person or customer as quickly as possible, still good quality. But in school, I was very much, I got good grades, but I would never, most of the time, spend all nighters. Like if I got to a point where like this can get a B, it's good enough, I'm done. I was lucky and had that mentality. And a lot of people don't have that mentality like, oh, it's not perfect, I'm going to spend all night and get the A. And it's like, was it really worth that amount of time? And I don't know where that came from for me, but it's helped me in the corporate America side where you do get that email from a customer and it's very much like, I will get it done and get it to a good enough point where it satisfies the answer and quality enough for the customer. And you get it. There's a big thing to timely answers instead of perfect answers. And I think there's a displacement there with some people in corporate America of understanding that most customers, when they send you an email, like that's their only focus. They're not focused on the 100 other questions you're getting. They're like, I asked you this question 3 days ago. Why haven't I gotten an answer? So I think there's a balancing act of like being perfect and timeliness.
One of the things in that regard that I've tried to adopt is, I'm sure this is more common in the corporate world, is letting somebody know right away that their question's been heard, we're researching it, it's being handled, something of that nature. If it is something grander that I can't just immediately fire off in a one-off text, DM, email, whatever. That way they at least know the message has been received, we're working on it. And then if it is something massive, try to provide updates along the way of, we're talking with our app development team, had a meeting about it today. They need to release a new build on our staging, then we need to review it. We're looking at truthfully like 10 days before this is 100% fixed, but I can let you know the progress along the way. Like I'm just trying to do better about that because again, I think transparency just goes so far. It's less about somebody needs all their answers solved. My I think I've gained some comfort knowing that people just want to know that they're heard and they're being taken care of, even if the end answer isn't exactly what they were hoping for.
Yeah, I think there's actually I'll go back. I've referenced this podcast before, but Alex Ramosi,
Your
in his
boy.
yeah, my boy. Maybe he'll get on here one time, but he uses the story of he worked at a fur coat factory when he was like 17, and it was like just for rich people, and he was in the back. Like he's like, I was 17, they didn't want me out front, they didn't want me to interact with the clients. I was just back making sure the coats were okay. And he goes, one thing that stuck with me, he goes, a lady came in and she was furious and because a button fell off of her fur coat after she bought it, and she came in ranting and yelling, and he was in the back with the owner, and the owner came sort of basically, he was like in the back, couldn't the customer couldn't see him, and he sort of looked at him, rolled his eyes, and then went out to the front door and basically became more upset than the customer was about the situation. Like, no, we're gonna get this fixed now. Who did this? Who sold this to you? We're gonna, and just giving that portrayal of like that customer was heard, like showing that you're angry for their situation that they're going through. And like two people can't be angry. If you're like, if you're trying to like please them, no, we understand, like they don't feel heard. So there is a big piece to that. And it just sort of picked up in my mind when you said that.
Well, she never should have purchased the fur coat anyways, but that's a separate
We're not getting
discussion
into
that
that. We're
that
not
I'll
getting
get
into
into.
that.
Yeah, yeah, we'll talk about that separately. That's why she should be angry because she
Getting all personal here. Let's not go there.
Yeah.
whatever, man. Now I'm gonna get angry. Q,
Yeah, I
your
know.
answer. Your response, Q.
No comment.
Not on fur coats.
Oh, okay.
No, he already answered the question. We gotta give him another one.
Oh, I just wasn't sure if he had a specific follow-up to that piece or the transparency or anything like that.
Yeah,
I know that's what
I
he
mean,
deals with all the time.
yeah, I mean, because really, like for our, like, I'll just give an example. Like, we'll have a car come into our auction, and then from the moment it hits our auction, we get it stocked in till the moment it sells. There's always something going on with that car, and we have a software that like my team works with, and the auction works with, and the client deals with. So that's how we communicate and how we post. Hey, like we'll put in if it doesn't have a key, right? We'll we'll send an estimate like, hey, the key's going to cost $50, right? So then we send that estimate to the customer. The customer then approves of that estimate, and then we have to dispatch that key to get cut by a third party vendor. And then from there, once the key's cut, then we can address how many miles does the car have, how from there. So that's the next step that the customer's looking for. And then from there, okay, now does the vehicle actually start? Does it run and drive? Things like that. So we have to get that dispatched to the mechanic shop. So we figure out, hey, does the car actually run? Does it drive? Based on the miles, is it worth actually fixing issues on the car? If it's a 20-year-old car with 200,000 miles, let's just piece it together as best we can and put it on, and we'll sell the car as is, which means it's as is. What you see is what you get, and you move on. But there's other cars where we're going to certify them. We say the car's good, the car's pretty much a perfect vehicle, but to get to that process, maybe we have to replace a bumper, we have to paint the bumper, things like that. Maybe there's an alternator that's bad, the battery that's bad. So we have to build the estimates, and then the client approves of them. Then we have to dispatch the work and things like that. So we have to make all of those notes in the system. And then, so that car could be on our property for 80 days, which is terrible. I mean, if our car is on property for 80 days, I mean, we're getting yelled at. So like we're trying to get the cars in and out as fast as possible. But what happens is if stuff gets delayed and things like that, if we don't follow up, then we get these notes back like, hey, what's going on with my car? Why is it not back? And yada, yada, yada. So that's like one of the biggest things I've been working with my team is, let's give honest updates. If there's a part delayed, it's on back order, it's supposed to be here on the 17th, and we made a note that the part was going to be the 17th. And now today's the 19th and the car's still not done. We need an update on what happened to that part that's supposed to be here the 17th. We know what's going on with everything because we sit here every day. But I mean, my customers or my clients, they fly in from South Carolina, from Houston, from all different parts of the country, and they work other sales as well. So they're not just working with me, they're working for other auctions and things like that all across the country. They have hundreds of thousands of cars all over the place. So like they don't know what's going on at our place. So we have to provide those details because that's their only way of communication, unless if they come on property and visit us. So it's like showing them, hey, we ordered the key's on back order. And just because we say that though, we need to follow up 4 or 5 days later. Hey, key is still back ordered. And then 4 or 5 more days, key is still back ordered. It's not we're pushing it off and forgot about it, but that's the biggest thing is just the communication. I mean, some things are out of your control in this business and in most business in itself. You have to wait for answers. You have to wait for compliance or whatever the case may be. And you just have to limit the stuff that you can control. You just have to limit those things, making sure you're taking care of your own stuff. And if you, like you mentioned before, if there's a software update or things like that, it takes time. Hey, I'll get you an answer on Thursday with an update. You got to answer on Thursday. Whether you have the full answer, hey, I don't have the answer, but here's where we're at. Here's what the developers are telling me. This, that, and the other. We ran into a delay, or you don't have to tell them the full truth, but let them know that, hey, you didn't forget about them, and you give them the experience of, hey, I'm listening. I heard your question. I didn't forget about you. I wish I had more of an answer for you, but this is just where we're at. And, I'll follow up with you here in a couple of days when I have more clarity and that sort of thing. And, never going to please everyone, but if you try to just be as transparent as you can, as often as you can, I think it goes a long way building goodwill. And that's the biggest thing in corporate America that I found in my experience is the more goodwill you can you can build both in your company and with outside vendors. Because I mean, it's all networking. I mean, people come and go left and right, and you never know when you'll need a favor. Like, not that Banko needed a favor, but you meet someone, if you do lose your job or something, and you might have a friend who's over there, maybe they can help you get in the door and things like that. So, if you build a good relationship with your people, it makes life so much easier down the road should you need them, or if you just have a good business relationship to make your life easier on a day-to-day basis.
Q, and I think we've gotten an hour and a half now. So we're
I
we're
told you I
getting there,
would
but
talk. I
yeah, you
told you
are,
I
but
told
I
you
do have a
this
follow
could
up to that.
go super short or super long. It depends on what you want. And once I get talking, I don't stop. It must just be the motor and the gasoline in my veins.
Yeah, I mean, just to build off of that, I mean, just from like living with you and you having your rental business and sort of dealing with the end customers that aren't always the best of being on time or even communicating that they're going to be late or whatever. Do you think that that's helped you understand that approach of being open and having that communication and transparency, or did you have that before getting that exposure?
I would like to say that I had a pretty good sense of that before all this came about. I think it's definitely heightened. If it wasn't there, it's definitely brought it out, or it's heightened my level of it, because I think it's just a matter of just common courtesy and respect. I'm not a business owner where like, hey, if you're 2 minutes late, like, boom, late fee, like all that stuff. Like, I get it. Like, stuff does happen. There is traffic. Like, there's some things that are out of your control. Like, hey, I'm running a few minutes late. I still got to stop by the gas station. I'll probably be there in 10-15 minutes. I have no problem with that. You know what I mean? Like, just let me know what's going on and I'll work with you. Now, you can't call me, but hey, I'm like 10-15 minutes away and you're supposed to be back 3 hours ago. Like, sorry, bud. Like, that's not how this works. Like, I'm all about being fair but like I'm firm with it as well. But like, just let me know, because like if I'm sold out, I'm expecting that slingshot to be back at a time because I have another customer being out, and then that delays their experience. And then not that it's necessarily my fault, but it is my fault that I didn't have that vehicle ready to go, ready for the next customer, and things like that. So like, they're negatively impacted, and if that's like their only experience they had for the day, if they're on vacation, or maybe they don't have a ton of money and they really saved up for this and they want to do that, I feel bad and I want to make that experience good. And when other people take advantage of that, it it hurts me personally. I don't really worry about it financially, but just the common courtesy and the respect that I try to be on time, have everything ready to go. So when they arrive, sign the waivers, in, out, let's get them going. You know what I mean? Like, I try to make it so easy for them, and I just ask of that in return. And you don't always get it. I mean, there's always going to be those bad apples that ruin it for some people. I've been pretty fortunate where I have had customers come back on time, that sort of thing. They communicate with me, no harm, no foul. It's just the ones that seem to be like I'm not gonna call them bad customers, but the ones that don't communicate and things like that, they just wear you down and grind on you. It's like, it's not 15, 20, 25 minutes late. They're 2.5 hours late. You know what I mean? Like, those sort of things. I have a hard time accepting that as like, hey, it's okay to do that. Like, so I try to make sure I'm on the extreme on the other side of, hey, here's where I'm at. And I'm very like, timing is a big thing for me. So if I have a meeting scheduled for 9 o'clock, I expect people to be there at 8:55. Like, that sort of thing. Like, the meetings, it may start at 9, but we're not walking in at 9 o'clock, settling down, doing all that. Like, let's respect everyone's time, energy, process, because we all have a million things going on. So I think I've definitely tried to communicate and be more, not self-aware, but more reliant upon myself to make sure I'm providing everything that I'm saying I'm going to do, that my team does, and just making sure everyone has the same kind of game plan and that they're truly just truthful. Being a truthful and good person gets you so much further in life. I just try to make sure that's kind of how I live, and in all aspects of it. But yeah, it's just, timing is just a huge thing for me, and I just want I hate when people don't respect other people's time. So trying to make sure I do that, and I'm in, out, and efficient. No one wants those long paragraph emails that takes 30 minutes to read. They want, hey, what time's your sale? What do I need? This, that, and the other. Boom. Hey, great to hear from you. We'd love to have you. Sales at Monday, 3:00. You need your dealer's license. You need your auction access card, your information. Come see the girls. They'll get you registered at the front desk, and then you go in and get your bid badge and move. Just that simple. You don't need a whole story. Give them to the point, get them the information, and try to think in advance a little bit of, would they have any follow-up questions? You know what I mean? So like, are they going to ask you, hey, do I need to bring this, that, and the other? No, I provided all the information beforehand. You know everything. I mean, you might have an extra question, but you try to limit that, because then you don't have to go back and forth so much. If you can shorten up your amount of emails, back and forth with customers, whether it's personal or business, whatever the case may be, just communicate effectively. You don't have to do it. You want to be quickly and effectively, not just quickly, and you have 30 emails with one sentence back and forth. So that's my approach.
I think worth following up on is, you hit on it. Everybody's busy. It's just that simple. And I think that's so important to have as a constant reminder. It's easy, especially as an entrepreneur, to get caught up in everything that I have going on, or trying to complete my own schedule. And sometimes I forget about others, or it's easy to forget what others have going on. And you know what? They're busy too. Everybody is busy. Everybody has a ton of stuff going on. So being both quick and efficient and effective in what you're doing, just in the long run, saves people a ton of time and a ton of effort in figuring out what's going on. That extra 1-2 minutes that you might need to spend to do something correctly, not perfect, as Banko mentioned earlier, but good enough to meet the standards necessary to convey a message, is so huge. Like you said, Q, when you're dealing with these instances where you're very flexible, or you're willing to work around these customers because they have so much going on. This is a massive thing for them. They love the experience of getting to take out a slingshot. So if they're a little late, as long as they do their due diligence for you to show that they care about you and care about your time, that's super, to me, that's what you want. That's meaningful, because then that's that mutual respect that you need. And then that way, if something goes absurdly wrong, you can pass it along to the next person down the line. It just allows you to better manage what you're doing. So I think it all just kind of comes down to the mutual respect of, everybody has stuff going on. What it is completely wrong to think that you are more important than anybody else.
Right. Yeah. And I think, and not to turn this into my podcast now and ask you guys questions, but I do have a question. So like, and you kind of asked this to me early on, so I'm gonna kind of throw it back to you, Adam, but it's like, you're asking about power sports and things like the slingshot and things like that. And I think one of the true things I've had to learn and level set with myself as a business owner is, I know the product. I know it 100%. I know it in and out. And like, you get these calls and these questions, and no matter how much information you put on your website and things like that, it's like, you get some of these questions. It's like, how do you not know? Like, do you look like and like, it's a little frustrating, but it's like, you have to remember, like, in this situation, I'm the expert, and not saying I know everything, but like, it's my business. I'm the expert. I need to provide that. And it's like, you really wish, and I'm sure Banko probably has to deal with it as well. It's like, you kind of forget that, in this scenario, you're up here and they're down here, just because you have all the information, the knowledge, the product, especially with like Flex Pro Grip, everything, you developed it, the ins and outs, you know the technology. And then someone comes in, they have all these questions, and you're just like, dude, just put the thing on, use the app, and you're good. You know what I mean? Like, don't make it more complicated than it needs to be. And it's like that's been like one of the biggest things I've had to learn is like no matter how, like level set myself on a daily basis and trying to remember, hey, they don't know. That's why they are asking the question. And before they shovel out money, they want these answers. It's like, all right, like I get it. Like I have to have those moments with myself, like, hey, Q, it's okay. Like, yeah, it's frustrating, but just answer them and move on. It's easier just to answer the question, move on, and if you have those conversations in your head of what they say afterwards, it's one thing, but it's like it's just easier just to be nice and get it over with and give them the information, not just demean them and things like that. So I'm curious if, well, and I'm curious if you feel the same way, like with your business and Banko as well. Like when you're talking to clients and things, it's like, yeah, like, dude, I've explained this to you a million times. Like, how do you not understand it? Like, how do you guys handle that?
In a couple ways. Obviously, it's trying to provide easily accessible information, as you mentioned, on a website, but not everybody wants to read. Then it's how do we address this? How else do people want to gather information? They want to see it. They want videos. They want something. So trying to provide something on social media where they can view it. Or for instance, we started Flex Pro Grips podcast, the Layback podcast. So maybe it's just they want more up to date conversation. It, one of the ways that I've tried to combat that is just provide information in every possible medium that an individual could consume it. Whether it's a newsletter, whether it's on our website, whether it's having accessible phone lines or email chains that somebody can get on, whether it's the website. And now a project that we're working on currently, again, kind of back to the customer service stuff that we talked about, is something called a knowledge base. And the idea of that is Banko and Q, you might know this from being in the corporate world, but at least from what I've consumed, the purpose of it is to have like a living document in a way that we can cite what others have experienced and call on it all back to one place. So although we might have information in various places around the website, it's more than just an FAQs page. It is literally the experiences that individuals have had in walking them through, here's the problem, here's how we solved it, and now as a result of solving that, this is the opportunities that that individual now has. So it's we're working on this like kind of Google Doc type thing that we can constantly cite these instances to have this, again, living document that any individual can go to. They can search maybe specifically what they've experienced, and then they're getting a real life situation from another customer as opposed to the sciencey mumbo jumbo that's so easy for me to call upon. But they don't want the sciencey mumbo jumbo. They want a real human to human, athlete to athlete conversation. And as although I might be the quote unquote expert that can explain it, it my communication might not resonate with them as much as another college pitcher in their experience. So we're just trying to do a better job to gather that information to provide it, and then just to reiterate, have as many different mediums of communication as possible so different types of learners can access that information wherever they search for it.
Yeah, I mean, I would reiterate the different mediums. I mean, from my current job now, it's like we're putting out blogs, we're putting out presentations, we're doing videos, we're doing tweets, we're doing Instagram posts, we're doing podcasts, we're doing anything and everything to try to cover as many answers and mediums as possible so that all the information is out there. Putting together FAQs and sending that to certain clients on a monthly basis on recurring questions, because a lot of it is just getting the same question week after week and me literally just copy and pasting what I already sent to another client. So it's like figuring out what those recurring things are and trying to combat that. But at the same time, I mean, people always want the easiest way to get their answer. And what's the easiest way to get your answer? ask the question directly to the person that can give you the answer. So there's always going to be that portion of, hey, we need to jump on a Zoom, or we need to jump on a phone call, or you need to answer my email. Like that'll always exist because that's the easiest way for that other person to get the answer. There, like, yes, there's a database of answers that we search through, and certain clients probably would search through that and do it on their own and take initiative. But some clients would be like, I'm not going to waste my time. I'm just going to shoot an email and they'll get back to me. So like, there's always going to be that. So I think it's very much just understanding that, again, taking that client perspective of if I'm a client, like if I want an answer, I'm going to call you or I'm going to send you an email. I'm not going to try to search for it. I'm going to go the most direct route possible.
Host Q, how is that? Are those answers good enough for you?
Yeah, how'd that feel?
I felt good. Felt good, guys. Yeah. You left me speechless. I was just stuck there for a minute, just trying to figure out what to say. So
you forgot you were the host.
I did. I forgot. Yeah. Hey, welcome to Q's podcast, guys. Thank you for tuning in. Shout out to all the subscribers, listeners. Make sure you subscribe, rate, review, all that good stuff. Yeah, had Adam and Banko on today, so we had a great time. So yeah, thanks for joining me.
Well, with that, I mean, I'm going to finish with, unless, Adam, do you have any more questions that you kind of are pertinating in your brain?
No, I'm real good. I've stewed. I feel good. Like I said earlier, this is probably the most serious conversation I've had with Q in the 11 and a half years I've known him. So I feel like we're in a good spot, and I don't want to push the boundaries too much.
Yeah, I
didn't know that side existed with me at all. I bet.
I mean, I know why you're a good interviewer now, though. Like shit. But I guess with that, Q, do you want to close out with anything? Say anything? Shout out anything?
Yeah, shout out your socials, dog.
Yeah,
plug.
Yeah, I mean, if you can follow us at Ride Your Way on Facebook and Instagram. You can find all of our content on there as well. Do a little bit on YouTube as well. But yeah, basically stay up to date. RideYourWayRentals.com. The official Players Adventures provider for slingshots here in Tampa Bay, Florida. So come by and see us and come rent and mention the podcast and we'll hook you up.
Yeah, I was about to say promo code TWORK gets you whatever Q decides when he picks up the phone.
We'll do 15% off.
Whoa! How about that?
Promo code TWORK.
Do we have permission to use that on future podcasts?
We'll figure it out.
I was about to say this is a first sponsor. That's cool.
Well, yeah, we can talk offline about it. We'll see where it goes. But no,
yeah, well, have your people call our people.
Yeah. I think I know a guy. I'm pretty close to a guy on the podcast as well. So, hey, Banko.
Yeah.
Perfect. Yeah. But before the wheels fall too much off this thing, sorry for all the car puns. But Q, I do really want to thank you for coming on. This was a cool insight to what you do and a look into really the love of your life. I mean, motorsports, and it's not something I ever had exposure to. So getting a look into it, especially from your eyes, was very cool. It was a good experience. I appreciate you kind of letting the guard down and sharing.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm glad we're finally able to get it done. I know we tried to schedule this a couple of times and, it just, life happens and all that.
Entrepreneurship. That's
exactly. Exactly. So I'm glad I was able to share my story a little bit and everything. So, I mean, hopefully that's what you guys were looking for here and, see where it takes us.
Yeah, no, this was great. And I'll just reiterate that this podcast has helped sort of get us to have the conversations of understanding what our friends actually do and what they're passionate about. Cause like, I mean, we've talked about it. Like you have no idea what I do and I didn't have any idea of what you did. So like this definitely opened up that door. I mean, even though we live together, so it's great.
Yeah. Well, it doesn't help, but you're still dealing with me. So, I'll be self-deprecating there. I'm not the easiest one to explain stuff to. So, X's and O's, ones and twos. You guys had some little inside joke there but yeah, binary.
Yeah, perfect. All right, with that, I appreciate everything. Thank you guys. Thank you for listening. See ya.
See y'all next time.
Hi, everyone. Grant here. Thanks for tuning into the show. If you could like, share, and subscribe, we'd greatly appreciate it. Also, if you think you or someone you know has a good life story to tell, we are always open to guest suggestions. You can send those suggestions to our email, tworkpod@gmail.com. Thanks again for the support.